Let's talk about change and changing careers with a real careers counsellor, Georgina Cascaden. Welcome to Skillshop. Have you been confronted with a lion tamer ever?
Not too many, Paul, not too many. I'm still waiting for them.
Let's talk about changing career then. Well, when does it happen? What stage in someone's life?
It tends to be quite often a crisis, or in these current times, redundancy tends to force people into a situation of thinking, I need to stand still and take stock of where I'm going. So it tends to be those sorts of things, and sometimes it's boredom with, well, I've got to here and I really feel I've got other strengths I could maybe use somewhere else. So those sorts of areas, really.
So people come to you presented with crisis.
Yes.
What's your advice to them? Where do you suggest they start?
The best place to start with is firstly to have a belief in yourself. That is the main starting point. The next is to get a very large blank piece of paper and to start with something called a SWOT. And that basically gets you to think about what strengths you have, what weaknesses you have, what opportunities you have for you, and what are the threats, what are the barriers that stop you from achieving them.
Right, well, let's go through the SWOTs but one by one.
Sure.
Strengths first.
Strengths, right. You'd think that most people would find it easy and that they could list a whole ream of strengths, but most people tend to dismiss. So to get your mind actually thinking about it, the best place to start is to think about a day in the life of yourself. Paul, you set the alarm clock, so you get up at a certain time, then perhaps you practice time management. You organise yourself, you plan your week, your day, that you meet certain objectives. It starts your mind to think about the things that you have as a strength. Then think about the jobs you do, the roles you have. Think about the experiences that all of those things give you. And then think about how that translates, if you like, into the skills and the strengths that you can then put into this list.
So there we are, with the piece of paper with the strengths on, which that's the pleasant bit, isn't it?
That's the good bit, that's the good bit. Once you're going to get started.
All right, let's talk about the W, the weaknesses, the downside.
Right, the weaknesses. My advice on the weaknesses is not to do what most of us do and write at least a full 2 pages on it, but to actually, if you think about it, to take 5. To take 5 realistic weaknesses that are real. I might never be a mathematician, but then again, it might not really matter. So do I bang my head against a brick wall and try and change it? Or do I actually concentrate my energies onto something I really can change? Do you see what I mean? It's thinking about, are my weaknesses in this type of organisation, or are my weaknesses a positive or a strength in another organisation?
So we've got strengths, we've got weaknesses,
yeah.
and I suppose the whole thing is more manageable now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're getting a bit more of a focus.
Yeah, what's the next step?
The next step is actually to think about the dreams. Think about the dreams and reality, to think about opportunities. Where could you go if you could take down or take off the blinkers of fear or, to a certain extent, practicalities of life, and to actually let your dreams come through and think about, is it money I want? Is that the opportunity for me? Is it achievement? Is it career? What sorts of elements are right for you? Is it that you can define it even further, as in the opportunity I'd really like to really move towards is I'd like to be a writer, say, or I'd like to be in your job, whatever. It's classifying really what the opportunities could be for you.
This is a lyrical piece of paper we're ending up with, but it's a long way from
I didn't say it couldn't be poetic.
It's a long way from translating that into actually making a career change. I mean, there are going to be hurdles on the way, aren't there?
Sure, there are going to be obstacles, and change isn't easy. We're not Pygmalions. It is usually hard work and effort. But the next part to go on to is to think about the doors that are closed, to think about the threats, to think about the obstacles that prevent you from actually achieving your opportunities. And it's going back and looking at what positives I have as a strength, what are the things I need to work on as weaknesses, where can I go if I do combine those things together, but what are the things that stop me? Is it practicalities? Can I do something about that? Yes, I have to pay the mortgage, but perhaps there's still a way of getting around it. Is it myself? Is it my self-imposed limitations? Because quite often that can be the problem. It goes back to you have to believe in you before anybody else can.
Right, this is all very good advice. Let's go through it briefly once again for anyone who's thinking of changing their career.
No problem.
The first step.
Right, is the blank piece of paper. Believe in yourself first. Go through your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, the threats that actually prevent you from getting there, and think about your building blocks to actually plan your action points.
Good advice.
Okay.
For all people thinking changing careers.
Absolutely.
Lion tamers included?
Lion tamers definitely included. Perhaps they need to go for a job at the zoo first.